5 mile marker events that we drew attention to in Update 2024 were first, the International Network for Government Science Advice meeting, which was held in Kigali, Rwanda. Second, the What Works Climate Solutions Summit, which is happening right now here in Berlin, where I am today. Third, the Global Evidence Summit, which is happening in Prague in early September. Fourth, the Summit of the Future, which is happening a few weeks later in New York City. And then fifth, the National Evaluation Capacities Conference. I always stumble over what the acronym means, which is being held in China in the very late fall. I think the first meeting that we had, the International Network for Government Science Advice, was a step forward in understanding where we are in trying to shift the approach to science advice globally. Our sense coming out of the meeting was that people engaged in government science advice have historically focused primarily on advice about science and technology, trying to improve the research system, trying to improve the innovation system. But they talk a lot about wanting to be much more actively engaged in supporting policymaking with best evidence across a range of sectors, housing, climate action, and so on. And that's a big shift because the skill set to give science and technology advice overlaps with, but is quite distinct from, this field of supporting evidence-informed policymaking writ large. And the networks and databases and techniques are different. And so I think that group really needs to be thinking about, if it's going to deliver on the promise of providing scientific advice across all those other domains, how does it learn from people who've been working in that space for a long time? So I think the breakthrough was more becoming aware of where the opportunities lie. The summit that I'm at now, the What Works Climate Solutions Summit, very different. Here I feel like we're just poised on the edge of a big breakthrough. We have people on the demand side involved in things like IPCC, thinking about AR7 and the evidence needs there, the need for understanding what works for whom, under what context for climate adaptation solutions alongside their historic areas of strength like modeling and so on. And we have an evidence synthesis community coming to the table saying, we think we can deliver on this promise of timely, demand-driven, high-value, high-impact evidence syntheses. And we're hearing people make suggestions like maybe we need to stand up 25 living evidence syntheses on the big climate solutions questions, get them up, keep improving their quality over time, and making sure they're updated just in time for when the cutoff for evidence to feed into the IPC process happens at the end of 2027. So I think extraordinary breakthrough that we're on the verge of here. I think the most key mile marker event that so many of us need to be shoulder to shoulder trying to push towards making it a breakthrough event is the Summit of the Future. So this is bringing together member states from around the globe to talk about what do we think the future global goals should be and how do we accelerate progress in the SDG or the Sustainable Development Group agenda. We're hoping that we can get to a stage with a pre-meeting before the Summit of the Future where we can talk about major new funding coming into this space to support an evolving suite of living evidence syntheses, and also what we're starting to learn from some of the evidence syntheses already being produced by the Global SDG Synthesis Coalition. So that could really inject fuel into this process and really help us to accelerate on this promise of these living evidence syntheses on all of the big sustainable development goal questions that are out there. So that's the one that's make or break. We have to come together to make that a success. The other ones give more targeted opportunities. One is to work in particular with the evidence synthesis and guidelines communities that are particularly well represented at the Global Evidence Summit to talk about how do we build a future together where those groups are much more connected to country-level needs for evidence, not just government policymakers, but organizational leaders, professionals, and citizens, and make sure that we're delivering the evidence that they need, when they need it, in the form that they need. And so that, to me, is very exciting. It's more of working on the supply side to make sure we can deliver on the promise. The National Evaluation Capacities Conference, which is happening in China later in the year, that's an opportunity to really engage with the evaluation community. So with the Global Evidence Commission, we often talk about these different forms of evidence. Folks involved in the evaluation community are often in really critical roles. The 46 independent evaluation offices of the UN, country-level evaluation units that are mandated by parliaments or executive branches by government, they play key roles in the learning and accountability space within governments. And if they expand their toolkit beyond evaluation to also include syntheses, both of evaluations, but also of scientific studies, it could be a game changer. We won't just know what was learned from this one evaluation, but on the topic areas that are covered by the evaluation, we'll know what the best evidence says in the world and how it varies by groups and contexts. So this is a chance to engage with the evaluation community. So again, a bit on the supply side because these are groups producing evaluations, but they're also embedded in decision-making organizations and are the drivers of learning and accountability. So a really big opportunity to also shape the demand side.